Good morning, everybody. My name is Seamus, and I'm here to share a story of Dungeons and Dragons with you. So this story comes from a game that I was running with a couple of friends of mine. Let me introduce the cast real quick. We have Misery, the half-orc barbarian, Bonnabelle, the human cleric, Guile, the Goliath cleric, and we have Tyrion, the half-elf wizard. The party has kind of strayed from the main storyline and has gone off to do something else. Really, they retreated from the main storyline and have gone off to find help. And they found help from an order of goblin, kind of an order of swordsmen that I created. In order to attain the order's help, the order said, hey, yo, we on this island, and we don't have time to check on everybody, so just kind of go do a check. Make sure everybody's okay. Here's some places to visit. Just poke in, say hi, see if they need anything. Report back. So me, as the DM, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to go to these places, they're going to see that they need help, because every place has something that needs done. So I'm thinking they're going to go, take care of them, and then come back and say, hey, we went to all these places, all of this was wrong, but we took care of it. At first, that's what they were doing. At first, they went to a farm. It's like, hey, we're getting attacked by these lizard men from a temple over there. And the party was like, don't worry, we'll take care of it, where they promptly almost die. After that, the party started to debate. Well, they didn't say we had to do anything, just poke in, say hi, and leave. So that's what they opted to do from then on. They'd go in, investigate, figure out what the problem was, and then leave. The story I really want to tell you is after they checked in on the farms. They went off to a kind of swamp area on the island. When they arrived, they were met by a forest gnome, just kind of sitting on the start of a boardwalk that went through the swamp. That forest gnome, he had a little stool, he had a crate, he had a plate of food, and he was just kind of sleeping, keeping watch, asleep, as you do. The party comes up, and this little gnome boy, who I didn't name, did not trust the party, and was just giving them every kind of runaround answer. You know, the party, what's your name? Why do you want to know my name? Well, because it's polite. Well, how about you tell me your name first? Well, my name's Bonnabelle, she's Misery. Aha, I see. And what do you want? Well, what's your name first? And then in my head I'm thinking, now I gotta come up with a name. And so I did. I named him Cicero. Cicero the Forest Gnome. Because that's totally a gnome name. Cicero. Totally. After a short conversation, Cicero informed the party that there was a small settlement inside of the swamp. To get there, all you had to do was follow the boardwalk and you'd get there. But to be careful of the swamp folk. There had been folk going missing in the swamp. And every time somebody would go missing, this swamp monster would appear. The way I described him was kind of like a guy in a ghillie suit, but the ghillie suit's covered in muck and swamp debris and such. So the party cautiously went down the boardwalk towards the settlement. Along the way, they saw in the distance a couple of these swamp people, maybe about 7 or 8 of them, but they were off in the distance. You know, not really paying the party any mind. They were just out there. After a little while, the party reached the settlement and started looking around to see if everything was doing okay. And the way I described the town was, it was this run-down town. There were buildings, but they were all kind of these makeshift buildings. Walls would be made out of bits and pieces of wood that they could find. You could see some pieces that had been on fire at some point. You could see little bits that were part of a barrel because they're still bowed. That piece over there looks like it came off of a boat because it still has the name of the boat on that piece of wood. Just like a makeshift kind of town out of any material that they could salvage. So the party decides, okay, we got to figure out what these people need and how to help, and then report back, because we're not doing it because our DM will totally kill us if we stay here. So where better to figure out a town's problems? The bar. So the party looks for a bar, which they find one pretty easily. They get the feeling that everybody goes to this bar that lives here. The bar is very much like the rest of the town. It's a makeshift little shop. The counter is only a counter because it's 2 barrels with some old boat oars sitting on top that make up the counter. A couple of shelves with like 4 bottles on them. Can't really tell what they are. And like 4 or 5 patrons sitting at tables. And the tables, they're like, you know those wooden spools they wrap cable up in, like the really big ones? Yeah, tables were those. So the party comes in and starts asking around, really just with the barkeep. After a minute, our wizard decides to pick a fight, talking down to these folk. Because, he's a nobleman, and he's better than them. Well, the patrons didn't like that very much. And the party was not about to back up the wizard. So the party said, here you guys, go have fun. And my patrons, I had written something up for a bar fight that I thought would be funny and deadly, because I'm mean. It was gonna start with just some slurred speech here. One of the patrons starts talking down to the wizard, but then the other one was gonna stop him before anything happened. It's like, no, wait. Do you remember the thing? It's like, oh yeah, the thing, yeah, go, you wait here, he's got the thing. And so patron number 2 goes back to his table and like comes up, and he like jumps around his table, and he's got like a targe in one hand and what looks like a club in the other. I have my party roll to see if they know what that club is. Only one person does, and it is the Goliath cleric. You know those old stick grenades? It was one of those. So that cleric grabs the party, everybody but the wizard, and backs the heck up. This guy then charges the wizard, shield bashing him and then smacking him with this grenade. And I rolled. It was going to be a 50-50 chance to see if the grenade exploded. It did not, which made me sad, but After this, the party promptly left because they're swamp people, they're crazy, they have grenades. The order hall is better off without these people. And so they leave. Now, when they leave, they've activated something, a little story hook that I had. As they're walking down the boardwalk, they start seeing more of these swamp people. Before they saw 7 or 8 and they were all kind of off in the distance. Well, now there are maybe 15 and they're a lot closer to the boardwalk. Still pretty far off, maybe 50 feet, but a lot closer. And a lot more of them as well. They can start to see these lights just in the distance. They'd fade in and then fade out. And then a little bit closer, they'd fade in and fade out. Just a little closer every single time. And there would be more and more lights. At first there were 2, maybe 3, and now there are 8 or 9. Until in a few minutes there are maybe 20 lights, all fading in and out, closer and closer. The party starts moving a little bit faster down this boardwalk, and one of my party members has a passive perception of 27. So that party member says, hey, when those lights are 30 feet away, I want to know. It's like, okay, cool. With your passive perception, you would notice. So after about a minute, I tell him, okay, you're keeping an eye on these lights. And you see that one over there, it's maybe 33 feet away. That one over there, it's 34 feet. That one's 32. That one's 35. They fade, and then they fade back in. That one's 28 feet away. He says they're 28 feet away? Yes, so what are you doing? We're running. So the party starts to run. Everything is still keeping pace. And eventually they do get back to the start of the boardwalk where they met Cicero. They do not find Cicero. And they decide, okay, we need to leave. But it is at that moment I say, hey, you don't see your NPC. I should mention they'd been traveling with an NPC for a while. I left him out because he's not really vital to the story until this point. But they'd been traveling with an NPC, and he's missing now. So the party's like, okay. And then I passed the party a sheet of paper. I drew a little diagram of where they'd be standing on the boardwalk. And I said, okay, place your character on the boardwalk and what way they're facing. And so they do. Most everybody is looking where they'd expected to see Cicero. But our wizard, Tyrion, is standing off kind of to the side, and nobody's looking at him. So I have him roll 2 saves. I have him roll a wisdom saving throw and a constitution saving throw. He fails both of them. And so then the party notices that Tyrion is missing. Tyrion wakes up with the NPC in kind of a cellar. They are somewhere. They don't know where. It's got this brick wall and a pitch black ceiling. They don't even know if there is a ceiling. It's so dark up there. And the floor looks like a swamp floor. It's just mud and muck. And there's a single door on the other side of the room, but they can't quite get to it because, well, they are in chains. The 2 of them are 3 feet off the ground. They are chained to the wall by their wrists, kind of like in a T-pose almost. Tyrion manages to escape his bonds, and he frees the NPC. And they go up to the door, and it's at that point I decide, okay, hang on, let me go check on the others real quick, and I'll get back to you. Because we have effectively split the party at this point. So I go back to the rest of the party, and I say, okay, what are you guys doing? And Guile decides, okay, hang on, I have a spell. And I forget what it was called. I think it was like Protective Circle or something. He made himself a little circle. It was like a 20 by 20 by 20 circle. And nothing could get through it. It was basically like protection from everything that protection from good or evil would protect you from, but in an AoE circle, which is pretty nice and would definitely protect him from the swamp folk. So everything starts going dark around the circle, like they are in magical darkness now, but they can still see those lights fading in and out. And I say, okay, so you guys are in this bubble. What you gonna do? And they're like, give us a minute. We will figure this out. Okay, let me switch back to Tyrion. So Tyrion, what are you going to do? Well, I can't really pick locks. Your NPC skill monkey that I gave you guys can. So he goes over to the lock, and he kind of looks in to see if he can pick it, and he notices, this is a different kind of lock. This is not a usual lock, because he looks in expecting to see the normal guts of a lock, but he doesn't see anything. In fact, he just sees a swirling mass of darkness. And he says, I can try to pick this, but I don't know if I'll be able to. So he pulls out his thieves' tools and he tries, and I roll. It was a pretty high DC, but it was not impossible. He rolled a 1. So he has no idea how to do this. He starts moving his pick around in this lock, and it's just, he's not hitting anything. So he pulls his tools back and says, I don't think there's picking this lock. So they decide to break down the door. Okay, strength checks. Tyrion rolls. He rolls like an 8. The NPC rolls. He rolls like a 9. They're not busting down this door too easily. They're like, okay, we're going to keep trying. Okay, cool. You guys are trying to bust down this door. Let me switch back to the rest of the party. Okay, what are you guys doing? We can survive in this bubble. What? Okay, so essentially what they were going to do was they were going to build a house inside of the bubble because they'd worked out that as a forge cleric, Guile could create a 20 by 20 by 20 foot home to fit in this bubble. And if he upcast this protective circle, it can last longer than a full rest. So he could essentially live in the bubble. Plus, with the other cleric having access to create food and water, they really wouldn't have any reason to leave this circle. They were going to survive in a bubble in the swamp, as their friends had been taken to who knows where. And poor Misery, the half-orc barbarian, was just kind of sitting there like, yes, magic. I am useless here. I say we charge into the darkness and fight it. We hit it until it dies. The clerics did not like this idea. So that's where we're going to leave this story off. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, have a nice day.